Welcome to Lit by Moonlight, where it's not a phase to become a human sunbeam in the middle of a work trip.
This week we're talking about Shadowandbone, a young adult fantasy novel written by Leigh-bardugo in 2012, which has recently been adapted into a Netflix original series. The story follows Alina Starkov, a young orphan girl working as a mapmaker for her country, Ravka. When Alina's unit is assigned to cross the fold, a swath of darkness that has torn the country in two, the vessel is attacked by Volkra, flesh-eating creatures that live within the fold. While saving her best friend's life, Alina unleashes a power that has unknowingly sat dormant within her, and her life, and possibly the fate of Ravka, is forever changed. Taken from her familiar life as an ordinary mapmaker, Alina is placed among Ravka's magical elite known as Grisha, as she learns how to wield her power and learns she may be the one to destroy the fold for good. Hello everyone! My name is Emberlin, and I'm a silly girl who frequently forgets how old she is.
How old are you?
That's a good question.
Oh, she wasn't lying. And my name is Kaitlin, and I hate that marshmallow is spelled with two A's.
Yeah, that is a bit annoying.
It should be E, marshmallow. Who says marshmallow?
Nobody I know.
DM me, I want to know, because I don't like it. All right, so how did you first discover the Shadowandbone series?
I would have to defer to you on this one because that's who I learned it from.
Wow, I had no idea.
That's who I discovered it from. Yeah. So this summer, you and I and our friend Sam, we were all hanging out together, and you had brought it up. I think you were really into it at the time, and you were probably finishing the last two books in the series.
I was reading King of Scars at the time, I believe, because I remember we went out to Barnes & Noble and I bought the last book.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of where you were, and I was like, wow, that looks really cool, and you were like, you need to read this, so you were a real big advocate for me to go and pick it up. And then, of course, I knew there was a Netflix series, but I didn't know that it had a whole book based off of it. So I was really excited to make that connection. How about you?
I am a little shocked that I hadn't heard of the series when it first came out, because I feel like 2012 was like peak YA fantasy novel time for me.
Yeah.
But I actually first heard about it from my best friend Molly last January. So it was before the series had come out on Netflix. And she was telling me that they were adapting it into a show. And she's like, Ben Barnes from Narnia's in it. And I was like, say less. I'm interested. And so as a birthday present to her, I read the whole series for her, for at least like the trilogy. And immediately I was sucked in. I thought it was awesome. I fell in love with it, read all of the books, immediately became obsessed, and then got everybody within my vicinity to read it. That includes you, my dad, my aunt, and another friend. So I'm doing great, I think.
Yeah, you've really been like pushing us and motivating us to do this.
You are not immune to the Grishaverse, if you know me.
Yeah, Kaitlin basically established a whole cult of people who've read these books. So
you're welcome, Leigh.
That is her power.
Yes.
That's the power she possesses. So Kaitlin, in this book, what did you think of the world building?
I thought it was awesome. Like, one of my favorite things about the series was the mix of both the magical powers and like the standard weapons that are used by soldiers. I feel like most fantasy is all magic or nothing. So it's really cool to see them mix. And of course, with both like the magical and the non-magical people, there becomes like this tension between both of the armies, despite them fighting for the same country. The first army, which are the ordinary soldiers, like they don't necessarily trust or even like the second army, which is made up of the Grisha, which is like the magical elite of this world. And you can kind of feel that everyone was on edge in the very beginning, which was pretty cool, having barely explored the world yet. And I feel like Leigh is so good at imagery, because whenever I'm reading it, even like this time through, like it was my second time reading it, and I was still like sucked into the world, and like I was no longer in my living room. I'm in Ravka, and I thought that was really cool. In chapter 2, they enter the fold, and immediately like you're there. There's a quote It was like standing at the end of everything. I held tight to the railing, feeling the wood dig into my hand, grateful for its solidity. And like everything is like super still and quiet. Another quote from page 30: we waited, listening to the sound of wings beating the air, growing louder as they drew nearer, like the drums of an oncoming army. And it was so good. I could like feel the tension again, and just like you could also hear the silence, which sounds crazy hearing silence, but like you could feel it. And I just really liked it. And that was only chapter 2, and I was like, okay, I'm in. Let's go. So I also just like love how quickly shit starts going down. Leigh never wastes time to get the plot moving, and I appreciate that. So how about you? What did you think?
Yeah, it was kind of the same thing for me. I just feel like she does a really good job of creating imagery that makes you feel like you're literally inside the pages of the book, walking around. And I really, really love that about, I think, this book and then every book that she writes after that. I also really appreciate her attention to detail. When I opened it up, there was a map, and I was like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, I just love books with maps. I know you do too. We're on this. We are big books with maps.
Love a good map.
Yeah, love a good map in a good book. So when I saw that, I was really excited. It just felt like there was so much detail and diversity in all of the settings that Leigh created to tell her story. From the Fold to Ulskurovo to Ulsalta. The Grand Palace, the Little Palace, the Orphanage, Bagra's Hut, just all of these places I felt had so much character, and it made me feel like I was in them. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever seen those ASMR YouTube videos that are like ambience, like story, like library ambience, or like cabin in the woods ambience. Like these books, I feel like they just radiate ambience, like. Yeah.
I'm sure there's like a YouTube video being like the Little Palace ambience.
Little Palace ambience. I'm going to find it, and I will link it in the episode description if I do. So, I really love that, and I also really love what she's done with the people in her book, the characters that she's created. I think the concept of the Grisha. Well, first, I think it's a very common trope for people to be sorted in young adult books, like districts in the Hunger Games, houses in Harry Potter, vampires and werewolves in Twilight. So when I learned about the segmenting of society in Ravka, I was like, ugh, like, here we go again, like another one of these books. But then I really ended up appreciating down the line the introduction of all of these really complex lenses through which the Grisha are perceived internationally as soldiers and as economic assets and as tools for securing power, as objects, and unfortunately, very rarely as human beings. So I thought that was really interesting. Also, the costuming, phenomenal.
Iconic.
Fantastic. Like, there's just something so like satisfying about the kefta as an indicator of rank and power, and the distinction of colors for your type of power. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I reading it immediately was like, what kefta would I wear? Which is always fun, I feel like, with fantasy. Like, it's like, which one will I fit into? It's just fun to think about.
Yes. Yes.
So let's jump right into our 2 peaks and a valley. What was your first peak of Shadow and Bone?
Oh, I mean, I love the strong female leads and additional characters in this book. I love Genya and Alina. And Zoya. I know Zoya, sidebar, is kind of a one-dimensional character in this book, but Girls Got Dimension later on. Like, keep reading Girls Got Dimension. That's my mantra for this book.
I'm staying quiet because if I open my mouth on Zoya, I will not shut up. I adore her. The end.
Yeah, she's endgame. I like that each character kind of had their very own rich backstory and personality, particularly in the later books. And I just really enjoy when there's not one-dimensional female characters. And yeah, everything about Alina and Jenny, especially in this book, is so fascinating. The way that they conduct themselves in the Little Palace because of the different power imbalances in their lives is really fascinating. What about you? What was your first peak?
My first peak was that it was the second time I read it and I knew how the story ended, but I still literally could not put the book down. And again, like I said, Leigh Bardugo's imagery has just such a
Mm-hmm.
fantastic way of sucking you into her world that I never wanted to leave it. Like
Mm.
I still don't. I essentially picked up the book last March and never put it down. I
Aw.
adore this world. I adore this series so much. It made me like when I finished this for the second time, it made me want to immediately start the next book, Siege and Storm, again because I'm like, oh well, here I am. I need to know what happens next. Again,
Yeah.
read all 7 books. They're all so good, and I think it says something when an author can create a world that is so memorable and that you're able to learn inside and out. Like I feel like I could like walk the streets of some of the
Yeah.
places and like just travel in this world and be like I know exactly where I'm going. I know what country I'm in. I know what city I'm in. And I think that's it says something to her writing ability and I can't say more amazing things about it. It's just incredible. So I loved it.
Yes, I second everything you said. I honestly think it would be fair to say that this book is kind of the blueprint for why we're here today talking to you about books. I feel like when I read this series and I was sharing my thoughts about it with Kaitlin, we really enjoyed just being able to spend time talking about a book together that we loved so much. And I think that's kind of what brought us here to do this podcast.
It really did.
So thank you, Leigh Bardugo, for inspiring us to be here right now. And
Thanks.
thank you for this wonderful book.
So what was your second peak?
Yeah, going off of what you were saying, I really love books where it feels like you can kind of walk through every single place in the book as you're reading and feel like you know exactly where you are. And I especially want younger people to have that experience. I think it's really important to keep your imagination as you get older. And personally, when I was reading this book, I felt like this book brought back a lot of my not childhood innocence, but just like the light in my eyes to be able to read something that has so much magic and like such cohesive world building in it was just wonderful because it was like, oh, I feel like a kid again reading this. So on that note, great book for young readers. I think it serves as a worthy alternative to other magical unnamed books, and yes, that's a read. And I would just really recommend it to anybody who's in high school or even middle school and is just, turning into a young adult and looking for something that has a really diverse set of characters and also a very cohesive and thoughtful storyline and beautiful world building. That was my second peak. How about you?
Mine was that this was the book that got me back into reading. So, like, going off of your point, like, this is a really great book for younger readers. I would also have to agree that it's a great book for, like, if you're like us in our 20s or even older, because I was in, 2+ year reading slump because, college. And I used to read all the time as a kid. I always had a book in my hand and I really missed reading, and I picked this book up and I never stopped reading after this book. I read this entire series. This was since last March was when I first read this book, so I have been consistently reading a book since then, and so it's been over a year now, which is really great. And I feel like it's such an easy read too, and not saying that like it's a simple story, because it's it's got its twists and turns and everything, but it's a really quick read if you want to try to get back into reading, especially if you like fantasy. Like I feel like it's a really good starting point. So I cannot recommend it enough. If 1, you like fantasy, 2, you like reading, 3, you just need to read this book. I love it. So, on that positive note, what was a valley you might have had while reading this?
A valley. For me, it was just that there were some times where I definitely got the sense that this was a book that was kind of a work in progress because of some of the tropes. Love triangles, whiny love interest man-child, girl with low self-esteem. I feel like that doesn't, like, To me, that makes sense because at the time when Leigh wrote this, it was 2013. It was just kind of a different era for young adult literature.
Yeah.
So she was probably kind of following the footsteps of people like Stephanie Meyer and Joanne Rowling that had kind of a predefined makeup for how a fantasy book should go, who should be in it, what they should do, who they should love. And I like that as she matures as a writer in later books, she kind of breaks away from those tropes. And I think you kind of hear more of her natural voice start to come in, Leigh Bardugo's, that is. But you won't see that so much with this first book, I think simply because of the time it was written in. Not to say 2013 was eons ago, but that I think that the what we expect from young adult books and what we hope for when we want to see ourselves in those books, I think that there are a lot more people writing a lot more unique stories that capture those needs that we have that weren't able to do that back in 2013, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense, yeah.
So that was mine, but I want to hear yours.
Kind of similar as far as like the writing goes. I felt like it was limited, and again, this book is told through Alina's point of view, so it's first person point of view, and maybe it's just because I have read her later books now where you do get the multiple point of views from all these different characters, which it's a personal love of mine. Like, I love being able to see different sides of it, and so rereading this, I wanted to have more time with Jenya, have more time with Zoya or David or Nadia, Marie. Like, I wanted to know more, and I feel like some of the side characters, they're just there. Like, Zoya in this book was literally just a bitchy mean girl. Yeah. And Marie and Nadia were just there to gossip, and I really wanted to have more from them. And again, this is just going off of this first book. Some of these characters get way more fleshed out later on, but like, I feel like this, like you said, it was kind of like a work in progress, or like Leigh was just finding her writing style or her voice. But selfishly, I did want more time with these side characters. So if you want to say that's a valley, that would be a valley for me. Was there a specific moment in this book that hooked you?
So I said this earlier, but I think it bears repeating. When I saw the map, I was very much in it. Love me a good map.
It's a good map, too.
It's a lovely map. And I just think an author that's going to include a map in their book, they're being very thoughtful about the world that they're building. And I could really sense that when I saw the map. Also, just picking the book up from the bookstore, the special edition copy that I was reading is everything. It's so pretty. It's golden. If you take it out in public, I can guarantee people are going to be looking at it and thinking, what is she reading? What are they reading? That's very nice, and want to read it too. It's just beautiful. It's got gold on it. It's got silver on it. It shines in the sunlight. It made me feel like a fancy woman from the Regency era reading it. Just loved it so much. How about you?
Very specifically, what hooked me was chapter 15. Like, before, I was in this world beforehand. I was enjoying myself, but this is the chapter where I could no longer put the book down, and if I had to, I was very angry about it because I needed to know what happened next. Again, I'm reading this book. I am not sitting here reading it in a living room. I am in a forest, and I can't close the book because then I'm stuck in the forest and I don't know what's going to happen next. So, so chapter 15, it's after, like, Alina had her demonstration of her power at the Winter Fete. She's finally feeling some sense of belonging. She's made out with a Darkling at least twice by this point, and I'm like, do I like this? But then, in this chapter, Bagra shows up out of nowhere at Alina's door and tells her that she needs to leave the palace grounds immediately. She's in danger, and it's all because the Darkling isn't just actually, to quote Billie Eilish, the bad guy. Not that his dark wardrobe would suggest that, but he is the Black Heretic. he's the one who created the fold, and he never intended to destroy the fold. He wants to use Alina to expand it. And I needed to know, how is Alina going to get out of this? I needed to know how she was going to move forward, knowing that her entire purpose here has been a lie, and I didn't want to stop reading until I found out.
That's a great hook. I feel like I might have to second that, because I feel like that was also the moment in the book for me when things kind of turned on their heels and I was like, wait, where are we going now? And I ended up finishing in like that same night that we got to that point, because I think from there everything takes off.
Yeah, it's like the moment where it's like you're just like Alina, you're comfortable and you're finally getting a sense of how everything works, and you're like, oh, okay, here we go, and you think you know where this might start going. You're like, oh, okay, we're gonna go destroy the fold, and then Bagger's like, psych, bitch, let's go. So I really liked it. I thought from that moment on, I lost my little mind. So
you were like, I'm ready to go to wild out,
ready to
over
go
this book. So with that in mind, did you find the Darkling reveal surprising at all?
Not really. I was never like, oh, he's the Black Heretic. He's actually that really old guy who created the fold years ago. I wasn't surprised that he had ulterior motives, but I wasn't completely surprised that the man dressed in all black was not good.
What?
I know.
Him?
Shocking. What did surprise me, as far as reveals go, was Bagra being his mother and trying to help Alina. Because, again, when she showed up, I was like, what are you doing here? What's going on? And Alina thinks she's going a little crazy, and she's just like, oh, you need a rest or something. You need some water. Like, we'll go to the infirmary. And I'm reading it. I'm like, no, Alina, like, I need to hear what she has to say, because up until this point, Bagra was just a cranky old lady, like one of those professors that you hated going to in school.
Yeah.
So, like, that's all she was. And I feel like Bagra being the Darkling's mom added so much depth to her character. Like, she was no longer just a cranky old woman. She was an ancient woman desperate to save an entire country and another girl from her son's manipulations. And she's also desperate to save her son. And Bagra says to Alina, it is because I love him that I will not let him put himself beyond redemption. And this is, I feel for her, because this is a mother who, she loves him so much, but also, like, she cannot let him win. And she's watched this happen for years, and she's just so desperately trying to stop him. And now that he might have power to become something worse, she needs to stop him. So I thought that was really interesting for her character. How about you? Did you see the Darkling become evil at all?
Yeah, like you said, I feel like the guy that's like being kind of a goth is like probably the evil guy. No, I feel like there were definitely context clues. I feel like there's always little hints or like red herrings that show you the truth about the plot of a book or movie. So, for example, in Song of Achilles, which we read last week, no spoilers, we talked about Achilles giving constant reassurance that he wouldn't kill Hector because Hector hasn't done anything to him.
Right.
You know?
What could that mean?
Right. So it was kind of the same case here, where it felt like they kept mentioning, oh, like the Black Heretic, he's different than this guy. Like, this guy's different than the Black Heretic. He's not the same. The Darkling is not the Black Heretic. And I was like, you wouldn't need to tell me that if it was, like, not a total lie. So, yeah, and I also agree with you. I feel like it was definitely a shock that Bagra ended up actually, like, being his mom. Like, talk about... I can't even call this mommy issues, because I feel like she's not the problem. Talk about son issues. More like it.
All right, so speaking of the Darkling, I have a controversial question.
Okay.
Malina or Darklina?
That's controversial. Stop the press. Yeah, so at the time that I read this book, and it really was just this book, I want to emphasize that, I was very team Alina should leave men alone and just be single for a while. Because the Darkling is literally someone's goth, manipulative grandfather. All love to the goth community. but
he's 120 years old.
Yeah, and goth. like, it's out of the question for me. Like, I'm not interested in that 120-year-old bodice he's got going on there. And Mal in this book explicitly is the equivalent of the So-No head guy from Vine.
Oh my God.
So I was just not into either of them. I was not interested in engaging in another love triangle young adult book. And because this book was written in 2013, I'll cut it some slack. But I think as society, we've just moved past the place where, like, the female main character's whole existence kind of has to be dependent on the male gaze of the two sexy men in her life. Like, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, Jacob literally imprinted on Bella's daughter. Like, if that didn't learn us our lesson, then what will?
Yeah.
Like,
what was that?
So I listened to one review, it was from Elliot Brooks on YouTube, where she mentions that she never sees the Darkling as a love interest. And I think that's a really interesting take that I want to expand on, because I think the Darkling, if anything, is kind of a catalyst for Alina's low self-worth. He easily manipulates her, and she likes the attention because she's felt so invisible most of her life. But as a love interest, I don't really foresee myself shipping them or really being interested in it. I don't see how they would even fit into, like, the enemies to lovers category per se, because, I mean, he's just so terrible. Like, he's not somebody that I think I'd want to root for as a love interest. And then to that point, I think she does spend a lot of the book, maybe too much of the book, commenting on, observing, judging, and focusing on everyone around her. Until the very end, where she starts to recognize her own power and autonomy. And I just kept thinking, like, you are just starting out. You are just figuring this out. You need to be alone. You need to work on yourself, girl. Like, she's like the friend who has, like, a bad ex, and she keeps going back to him. And you're like, girl, you just need to work on you. You need to go to therapy. Like, you need to do some, like, breathing exercises. You need to get off social media. You just gotta like vibe for a little bit, you know? So that's what I wanted for her. But I know that you have very strong feelings about the ship wars in Shadow and Bone, Kaitlin. So please tell me a little bit about how you feel about this topic.
I do. I don't want to say there's strong feelings, because I'm not out here to be like, I'm not attacking anyone. It's just, there's something I don't get. But, like, okay, so there was a brief moment where I thought I could ship Alina with a Darkling. Because I was like, ooh, maybe this is like...
He's hot.
I mean, if you just watch the show, Ben Barnes is nice.
He can get it. He can have it.
He can
it's
get
free.
it. He
Yeah.
can do whatever he wants. Love that. Totally get it. And even reading the book, you're like, yeah, okay, I get it. And, like, I kind of like the light, your, like, character A is the light and character B is the dark. Like, I kind of like, it's kind of cheesy, but, like,
I love it too.
I'm here for it. I don't care.
It's aesthetic. It's aesthetically pleasing.
It is. But there are a few specific tropes that have me in a chokehold, and childhood friends to lovers is one of them.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
It is so good. So I was rooting for Mal from the beginning, even with a brief step into Darklina for like a chapter. The second Mal showed up, I was like, Return of the King, let's go. Where have you been? Explain yourself. I don't think that Mal is the best love interest ever written. I do feel that there are other characters that are way more interesting than him at times, especially when we get into other books, because he's not perfect. However, I really don't understand the hate that this character gets. Like, I didn't know that so many people hated him until I saw stuff on Tumblr after I watched the show, and people saying like, oh, they fixed Mal, or they made him more likable. And I was like, but everything he does or says in the show came right from the book. So where did this come from? Why do people hate so much?
Right. No, that's interesting. I feel like that's something that I've heard a lot too. And I guess I'm curious, like, say more about that. I'm really interested to hear your portrayal of him in the books.
Yeah, I'm again not saying he's perfect because he's not. I'm just going off of this first book, um, because he has his little shit moments, but
Right.
focusing on Shadow and Bone, like one of the main arguments I keep seeing is that like Mal never accepted Alina's power, or rather he just like took a while, whereas the Darkling accepted her like immediately.
Hmm.
Uh, One thing I just want to point out is that yeah, the Darkling accepted her power, but only because he wanted to use Alina for his own purposes and literally put a collar around her neck, taking away her control.
Hmm.
So I don't think that's a solid point to go off of, but maybe it's just me. And Mal was scared of the Grisha. He's not great, but he does apologize for any hurt he has caused Alina. Like when we
Hmm.
first see Mal again at the Little Palace, he's acting like a jealous little shit because he saw Alina with a Darkling and how comfortable she must be, and he's pissed because from his point of view, his best friend was taken away by a man who cut her to demonstrate her power. He didn't get a chance to say goodbye to her, and then he said that he heard rumors of her being tortured. He hasn't
Right.
received any letters from her, which he tells her as much. He says that he didn't receive any letters, so he has no idea what's going actually going on. And
Hmm.
for once, he's able to get a glimpse of her and know that she was safe. And Mal took on this mission of finding the stag because he knew it was for Alina, and two of his best friends tagged along, and he watched them get killed on that mission. And this boy has been through hell. So yeah, I'd be in a mood too if I went through all that only to find my friend like acting all cozy in royalty. Like
Yeah. Yeah, I think I might also pop off if I was ghosted by my friend via letter writing in a wartime dystopian wizard country. That's fair.
yeah, like it again, when you're reading the book, you don't know that like because you're only getting Alina's point of view. And of
Right.
course, Mal doesn't actually know how much Alina has struggled at the little palace because when he sees her, it was when she was just finally like fitting in and knowing her power and being able to like use it herself. But what I love about Mal and Alina is that they actually eventually communicate with each other. At the
Right.
end of their argument in the little palace, Alina says, "I didn't ask for any of this," and he says, "I know you didn't." And
Mm-hmm.
later on, when they're in the woods and on the run, he apologizes for what he said. He says, "I'm sorry for what I said at the little palace, and I'm sorry for everything else too." And he tells her, "I'm sorry it took me so long to see you, Alina, but I see you now." And I think
Mm.
the big thing for Mal and Alina is that they fell for each other, or at least they realized that they loved each other at different times.
Right.
And uh, Mal, he realized that he loved Alina once she was gone and not in his life any longer. He said, "I missed you every hour, and you know what the worst part was? It caught me completely by surprise." And Alina, similarly, she didn't realize until he was gone for a bit, like when they were younger.
Right.
It was like how we found out, like how she had the scar on her hand. Like she was holding a sharp piece of pottery, and when she saw him, she ran to him and hugged him, and was shocked by how much she missed him, and
Right.
didn't even realize that she was squeezing the pottery in her hand too tight. If any of that makes sense, I could
Mm-hmm.
go on, but the TLDR is I don't personally think Mal is as bad as some people say he is. He's fine.
Yeah, I think this goes back to what you were mentioning earlier that you wish that you had more time with some of the side characters in the book, and I think this is a great example of that playing out for me. Like I would have really loved to like see Mal's perspective on everything that's going on
Right.
in this book. I think that's actually something the show does really well, and maybe that's where people are like they fixed him. Uh, is like you get to see Mal's perspective and you actually get to have some empathy for him and see like the horrors that he's going through while looking for Alina. So I think maybe that's probably I'd like to believe that that's what people get from the show that maybe they're not getting from the book is that opportunity to be empathetic for him maybe.
Yeah, and I think it's really easy to just because you're getting one perspective from a book, you're obviously going to side with that person and you're not spending
Right.
time with Mal, so why would you,
Right.
you know?
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. The show did really well by him by
Yeah, I think so
showing
too. Yeah,
everything.
no, I think they did too. Like he's just like he's a total heartthrob in the show, right? I think maybe sometimes even more so than Ben Barnes. I know that's hard to accept, but like he's a cutie. Like
Archie Renault is very good looking.
He is, and like yeah, I think I agree with you 100%. If you were able to play a song to hype yourself up to go into the fold, what would it be?
Into the Thick of It by the Backyardigans.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No. Actually, it would be Dvorak Symphony No. 9, the fourth movement from the New World, but specifically that remixed with My Humps by the Black Eyed Peas. Mm-hmm. It is iconic. I will link it in the description because I'm afraid of copyright, but it is a joy, and I highly recommend a listen.
Yeah, Kaitlin played it for me the other day, and I honestly don't think that I can ever listen to another song again. I think that's the only thing I can listen to until I die. It will be my wedding song. Yeah. It will be the song they play at my funeral, but like a symphonic version. And that's it. That's all.
Yeah.
Mine was, and this is just because we just finished Our Flag Means Death, which is a brilliant show on HBO Max, which this is a plug for, even though we are not paid to give you that plug. HBO, please sponsor us.
Please. Also, renew season 2.
Also,
for the love of God.
2.
As of today, it is still not renewed. Why? It is so good. Go watch Our Flag Means Death. This is not an ad.
Yes. But with that in mind, I'd say The Chain by Fleetwood Mac.
The chokehold that song has on you.
The chokehold that song has on us. Yes. It keeps me awake at night. That, My Humps remix of Dvorak's Symphony No. 9 fourth movement from the New World and The Chain by Fleetwood Mac are the only 2 songs you'll be hearing at my funeral and my wedding on repeat. One after the other, just back and forth until the end of both nights.
Sometimes they mix into each other.
Sometimes they mix into, and if you're wondering why I'm mentioning both my wedding and my funeral and no other events, it's because I'm planning for them to happen one after the other. In fact, I'm planning for the funeral to happen first, and then the wedding. So, be there or be square.
I look forward to it.
Thanks.
Okay. Do you have a favorite quote from Shadow and Bone?
I have 2. The first, and I think this goes back to the messaging that I've been giving you all you youngins at home throughout this whole podcast, which is like, be an independent woman. You can do this. And that's this. The stag had been showing me my strength, not just the price of mercy, but the power it bestowed, and mercy was something the Darkling would never understand. I'd spared the stag's life. The power of that life belonged to me as surely as it belonged to the man who had taken it. I love this part because this is where Alina starts to recognize that the power that she has, it doesn't belong to the Darkling, it belongs to her. And she finally starts to like use that power for good. And use it to fight against the Darkling, and I'm so proud of her for this. So when this happened in the book, I was like, yes, like, go, you go. Like, I was so happy. And my other favorite quote was, and this is just because I love conversations about men and power, why can a Grisha possess but one amplifier? I will answer this question instead. What is infinite? The universe and the greed of men. Like, that sounds like something that your philosophy professor would say.
Yeah, that's a solid line.
Before assigning you the most rigorous and upsetting exam you've ever taken. But, yeah, it is indeed a solid line. How about you?
Mine is actually from one of the beginning chapters. It's from page 82. Alina says, I looked up to the night sky. It was full of stars, but I could only see the endless reaches of darkness between them. Oof. And that's just from chapter 5. And it's from when they were like making camp for the night, when they're on their way to the little palace. And I really like it because, again, Queen Leigh Bardugo, imagery queen. it just made me really feel just how lost Alina must be feeling and how lonely she will feel later in the story, and how usually you look up into the night sky and you see the stars and you see the beauty, and I just how sad it must be to look up into that, like, the beautiful space and see nothing but darkness and loneliness. And it was such a, I don't want to say simple line, but it's on the surface simple, and then like you read it again and you go, it just, I love it when things have a really like a deeper meaning to it.
Yeah.
And just for that to reflect on Alina's character at the time, I thought it was beautifully written, and it stood out to me on both times I read it.
It is a beautiful line. I feel like you just piqued my interest in a line that I never really would have noticed. Like, it's the type of thing I think you'd read right over, unless you've read the book a couple times, or you just take time to find the deeper meaning. And I love it. That is a beautiful line. I'm going to add that to my list of favorites. So, Kaitlin, if you were a Grisha, what would you be, and why?
Without question, I would be a healer. Especially if we're like taking this question, like, if we still lived in our world now, what type of Grisha would be? I would still absolutely be a healer, because I think they would come in handy the most. I've also just had enough health issues lately that if I were able to heal myself, it would really take care of a lot of my anxieties and issues. Yeah. So that would be really nice to just, like, boop, pop away my back problems. And if someone around me got hurt, no problem. I got you, fam. And also, I don't, like, within the Grishaverse, I don't necessarily want to be fighting a war. I'm not brave enough to be on the front lines, I will admit, and I, once again, have too many back problems for that. So I will just heal everyone. How about you? What would you be if you were a Grisha?
Yeah, I love that we had similar answers. Well, no, first I said I'd want to be a sun summoner because I have seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah.
So I need all the vitamins I can get. Like,
yeah.
But I also said I'd like to be a heartrender. I'd like to master healing and tailoring and killing. Not that I would, like, kill anyone in case the police are listening.
For legal reasons, that's a joke.
For legal reasons, I wouldn't kill anyone. But, like, for self-defense purposes, like, let's say we're all walking home from the club one night and, like, somebody comes at us, I'll just, like, flex my fingers and they are not coming at us anymore,
Yeah.
And then, like, tailoring would save me a lot of time and money in skincare and makeup. And if I was a healer, I said as well, then Kaitlin wouldn't have back problems. So that's my priority. And that's, like, within this world. And I also agree with you. I don't think that within the Grisha world I could be a Grisha whatsoever, because it's either you're in some of the countries that aren't Ravka, where you're potentially being sold as an economic asset or oppressed. And then in Ravka, I'd have to be a soldier, and the military-industrial complex does not look good on me. It's a no for me. Like, I'm not interested. Yeah, no.
No.
Woof.
All right, so we have read the books. We have watched the show. How do you think the show did compared to the book?
It's a great adaptation of the book, the show is. You can tell that there's just, like, a lot of care and tenderness put into the series and its characters and the world they built and the effects and the writing and just everything. The casting for the show is impeccable. I feel like if you watch it, you'll think that the characters have jumped right off the page. The only thing that scares me is that it's on Netflix, and sometimes Netflix chooses not to renew some of its greatest series. So I really hope this show will withstand TV executive offices and be able to go to the end of its natural storyline, and we'll be able to follow along for that. How about you?
I hope so. I agree. I stand by the fact that I think the show did a fantastic job adapting the book, especially since they combined the first Shadow and Bone book with characters and elements from Six of Crows, which comes later in the Grishaverse universe. So it could have easily been a complete trash fire. And
Yeah.
I was a little nervous after I read the Six of Crows book. I was like, how are they going to do this and not screw it up? But I thought they did a really good job, especially without taking away from their characters or storyline. I think the world of the Grishaverse was captured beautifully. A lot of it was very similar to how I pictured it. The Fold is so scary and cool, and there's a scene, no spoilers, but you see how the Fold gets created, and I think about that a lot because it just stood out in my mind, just seeing like this black slash just like jut across like this beautiful landscape. It was so cool and surreal looking, and the costumes are absolutely incredible. The keftas, oh my god, they're so cool. Like the little details, like Jenya's kefta has like a sewing needle in the stitching. It's so cool, and it is beautiful. And again, like you said, the actors are insane. Like a lot of them, really, it's like they jumped right off the page, and I feel like they really truly embodied the character that they were playing. And you can tell that they read the books and they care so much about their interpretation of Leigh's work. I know you're never going to get everything exactly like it was in the book, but I really think that the show being presented to a new audience, it did a really good job of showing the world. I do wish we had a little more from the Shadow and Bone side, like more in-depth conversations with Bagra, more scenes with Alina being trained with Botkin, or even more between Bagra and the Darkling. And also, I was talking to my aunt about this because she had just watched Shadow and Bone, and we both agreed that we really wanted Alina to do more in the end battle against the Darkling in the show, because she really didn't do too much. But hopefully, because season 2 is coming, hopefully we'll get some more details and explore more of that in season 2 now that the show is established. So I have hope. I really think that they'll do really well by this show and these characters continuing forward. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, no, that's my hope too. I have this like horrible image in my head of all the Netflix executives like looking at 2 shows and being like, what do we keep, Shadow and Bone, or is it Cake? They're both so good. And then like choosing the wrong one.
That's a real show, isn't it? Is it Cake?
Yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird. It's exactly what it sounds like. And that's it. So I feel like now that we've talked a lot about the show and some of our favorite aspects of the book, we should talk a little bit about some of our favorite characters. So Kaitlin, share with me now what character you would write a letter to from the Little Palace.
I would write Alina a letter from the Little Palace, honestly. Like, she's so funny. I think that's another thing I wanted from the show. She's got this very good sense of humor, and she's so quick. I think we would get along just by our sense of humor alone. And also, we had the same anxiety, kind of.
Yeah.
So I feel like we would get along really well. I also just really feel like she needed a friend to talk to for a lot of her time while she was at the Little Palace. So I would want to be able to keep her company so that she would feel less lonely while she was there. Who would you write a letter to?
I said the same. I said Alina. I also felt like she really needed a friend. Rereading this book, I found myself just getting really sad about how lonely and in her head she seemed all the time. I feel like her self-worth is a little low, but her power is so great, and her personality is so great. And that's what makes her storyline so remarkable. But I feel like she needed friends around her and a support system to show her that. And in the folks around her at the time in this book, I don't really feel like she had that, which made me sad.
Yeah, poor Alina.
Yeah,
she really went through it.
She went through it.
All right, so we both adore Alina. Let's talk about the character we would never write a letter to, or maybe we would use the cut on.
Okay, I don't think I'd go so far as to murder these 2 people in cold blood for legal reasons. No, I'm just kidding.
For legal reasons, I would not use Grecian magic.
Once again. But there were two people on my shit list at the end of this book, and that's the only two people Alina really had. Hence my last answer about who I read a letter to. Not only did I feel like she needed a friend, I also felt like the friends she had were not really doing her justice. I think last time we were talking about this, Kaitlin, I was like, Kaitlin, you need to be the redhead for Alina that she needs. The redhead she deserves. Because Genya just wasn't doing it for me in this book. You'll come to understand why she chooses the path she does, but it does hurt that she withheld Mal's letters from Alina. It really threw a wrench in the gears of their friendship and their romance. And when you actually get to read Mal's letters, because they're at the end of the book, it makes you even more angry because they're so sweet and sad. And it's like, it looks like the equivalent of like you writing like a really nice, long, loving text to somebody and them like leaving you on read. So I was like, come on, Genya, like that's not cool. Like she cock-blocked her. Can I say that? I did. We can. Yeah. We'll
we can say that.
We'll filter it out later.
No, I won't.
It's just so shady. It's just so shady. We're gonna if we had any opportunity to get brand deals, we just lost it there. So that was my one, and then I had the other was Mal. I'm sorry, Kaitlin. Because
it's fine.
He just like set a low bar for me in this book for teen boy love interests. And like later on, if you read the other books, which I really recommend you do, he totally makes up for it. He ends up being a real sweetheart, and in the show, I feel like many have said he's a real sweetheart. But when I was first reading this book over the summer, it was like the first romance book I'd read in a long time, and I remember reading it, kind of thinking of it from the perspective of my love interest in life, which is my partner Vishwas. So the whole book, I was thinking about it if we were these characters. And the thought of Vishwas treating me the way that Mal treats Alina for, like, the majority... Like, I would cry. Like, I love that Mal goes and ultimately seeks the stag for her. But I can tell you for a fact that Vishwas would not just find the stag, he would come back with the stag, and he'd also bring, like, a lemon meringue pie that he made, like, homemade for me. And, like, roses and some bath bombs and some other things that I like. And I'm just saying I feel like Mel should have done that.
I think Mel absolutely should have brought a lemon meringue pie to Alina. And this is why, actually, I hate him. This is a plot twist.
I convinced
you. You convinced me with that one line. No, yeah, I mean, he wasn't the greatest. We know this. Yeah. I still defend him.
Also,
I love him.
The Darkling, but, like, for unrelated reasons. I didn't add this in my notes, but I was just thinking about it, and, like, who even was that guy?
I don't know.
Like, come on.
Why was he here? Yeah. Just to make Alina suffer.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like, no. Toxic. How about you? Anyway.
The Apparat. Next question.
Yeah.
No. I hate that guy.
Yeah.
Like, Darkling, he has his issues. Genya and Mal deservedly are on the shit list. Mm-hmm. Totally get it. But the Apparat is on a whole other level.
He's skeevy.
Like, he's skeevy. Every time he's on the page, he makes my skin crawl. Alina describes him like smelling like graveyards. That's a no for me, dog. No, he's gross and I hate him, and even with as his character goes on in the books, I continue to hate him more. So he would, without question, and for legal reasons, this is a joke, I would use the cut on him.
Yeah, Kaitlin, on the Venn diagram of, like, people that are allowed to smell like a graveyard, it's like there's one box that's like Morticia Addams and Gomez Addams, and the other is the Apparat, but then, like, they're not connected at all because, like,
I was gonna say it would be in the middle of that.
He's not allowed to smell. I don't know who's in the middle of that. Maybe that's not the visual I was trying to create, but you get the gist.
Yeah, I get it.
Woof. Anyway,
I just like that Morticia and Gomez Addams are allowed to smell like a graveyard.
They literally live in a graveyard. They have there's a graveyard in their backyard. Like, I feel like they deserve it.
No, but it completely makes sense. They completely deserve to smell like a graveyard and make it smell good.
I think they would. I think the graveyard smells good. I think their graveyard
Yeah.
smells good. It smells like really good corpses. Like
the real good
really
corpses.
good. Yeah, they find them fresh. They go to like the local organic flower shops. They're at Whole Foods. They're getting they're at Wegmans. They're getting their corpses fresh. But I cannot say the same for the Apparat. He's getting that shit off Amazon.com. Like, he's getting those Shein corpses. So, anyway. With that in mind, I feel like I have to stop saying that. I should change the subject because it's not working anymore. On a scale of 1 to 5 whacks of Bagra's cane, what would you rate this book, Kaitlin?
I would rate... I very much want to give this a 5 out of 5, but that's just me being very biased about it.
Oh, no.
But critically, I will give this a 4 out of 5 because, yes, there are things that could be a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
However, this book has my whole heart and I adore it. So 4 out of 5 whacks of Bagra's cane for me. How did you rate?
Well, I mean, you should give it a 5 anyway. Like,
okay, you changed my mind. It's 5.
Sometimes
sometimes I'm like, I really need to think critically about the things that I love. Because
No.
I'm like, yeah, 10 out of 10. This is perfect. There's nothing wrong with it.
well, like, yeah, yeah, I agree with you, but also, it's like,
But also, it's a 5 out of 5 book for me.
who is going to come at, like, who's gonna come for you for rating this 5 out of 5? I would like to talk to them. I just want to talk.
I don't know. But if I find out...
There's gonna be like a whole Twitter account that's like, Kaitlin Morey rated Shadowbone 5 out of 5, despite the fact that it needs some work as a book. Like,
They come for me every time I give something 5 out of 5.
like, what? That book? No, yeah, no.
Not that book. Yeah, 5 out of 5. I love this book. I adore it. Can't recommend it enough.
Okay, yeah. Read it for Kaitlin. Explicitly read it so you can talk about it with Kaitlin.
Yeah, if I haven't made you read it already, please read it.
Yes,
for
yes.
me.
If you are one of the 2 people in the world that have not yet been told to read it from the mouth
By me
of Kaitlin.
specifically.
Yeah.
All right, how many whacks of Bagra's cane do you give Shadow and Bone?
I actually said 4, but that's because I'm a very negative person. No, it's I really loved it. It's a really nice fantasy series. I think I can only give 5s to things that make me just go batshit insane. Which there's a book coming up way down the line from here now that we'll be talking a lot about that I have a lot to say about.
Correct.
And I love very much. So stay tuned.
See, that's
for
why
that. But
yeah, I feel like I have to save the 5 out of 5s for the really special ones. But
this is a special one
really
for you,
special
yeah.
one.
So that makes sense. And I took a point away because the Apparat he's got some low quality corpses in his graveyard.
He gets his corpses at Shein.
Not interested in that. So his corpses keep coming with tags on them, and like the zipper's messed up, and like it smells bad, but like in a bad way because it's been kept in storage for so long in a warehouse. And
What did you get out of Shadow and Bone? Oh, well, the Apparat smells like corpses, and he does not get his supply from a good place.
there's like a corpse like listing on like Shein, and the rating is like, there was a stain on my corpse when it came in the mail. I didn't like this.
But the Apparat's like, 5 out of 5. What are you talking about?
The Apparat's like, this corpse
He's
is
got
so
a Twitter
good.
account.
I love these corpses so much. They're so good. I especially love making myself smell like them.
Calvin Corpse.
Calvin Corpse!
Oh, well, thanks for listening
Yeah.
to our discussion of Shadow and Bone. Tune in next time when we get forcibly taken from our homes and transported into the world of fairy when we discuss The Cruel Prince by Holly Black.
I wonder if we'll like that book.
Who's to say?